Hi, I'm Mariah, and as some of you may know, I am currently a culinary student who is currently studying for her bachelor's degree in culinary arts. Today, I'll be taking you with me to culinary school for individual pastry class, and for today's class, we will be making a gateau. This is going to be our second lesson of the semester, and at this level, everyone brings in their own recipes and creates their own version of the dessert rather than having the lecturer demonstrate for us and us all doing the same thing. I really like this because we have complete creative freedom over whatever dessert we may choose to do. If you're that kind of person that wants to do their own thing, then they will completely let you do that. For my gateau, I have decided to create a gateau inspired by a Reese's cup or Snickers if you're from Europe. I'll be using three main flavor profiles: dark chocolate, caramel, and peanut butter. Once I have all of my equipment and recipes ready, it is time to begin preparing the gateau. I'm starting off by preparing the base. For my base, I'm making a foliantine, peanut butter, and dark chocolate base. Then I'm rolling it out onto a thin sheet, and I'm placing that on my tray, and then I'm placing the cake rings on top. I'm also making too many versions of this gateau because at the end of every pastry class, our teacher has to taste our final dishes in order to give us feedback on them and calculate our scores for our grade. And I didn't want him to ruin my gateau, so I made him a mini version, which he can have all to himself and enjoy. I'm purposefully leaving the leftover base surrounding the rings, so when I fill the rings with the mousse, it will prevent anything from leaking out of the bottom. I'm then going to set these in the blast chiller to firm up a little bit, and meanwhile I am going to make the mousse. For the mousse, I'm making a dark chocolate and peanut butter mousse. I think the recipe I used had like a mistake or something because it called for an insanely large amount of gelatin. I actually ended up reducing that amount of gelatin, but it still turned out pretty firm. Once the mousse is done, I'm going to fill the bottom of my cake rings, and then I'm going to put this in the blast chiller again to set. While that's going on, I'm going to make a gooey caramel filling so that when you cut into the cake, it sort of like drips out a little bit. At the end of my class, my lecturer actually told me that the concept of this would have been better if it was for a much smaller individual sized dessert, and I do actually agree with that. Once the caramel was done, I had a dilemma of how I was going to put this in the middle of my gateau without creating a mess. I did not want to use a silicone insert because I knew it wouldn't freeze hard enough for it to come out in one clean piece. So I decided to make sort of like a dam by piping a ring of the mousse around the edge and then blending it into the mousse that was already set and then bringing it upwards to create a wall. And then I just pipe the caramel in the middle and I set that in the freezer for the top part to get firm. I'm then making a peanut butter infused sponge to go on top of the caramel. To be completely honest, the gateau would have been totally fine without this layer of sponge, but I wanted to add it just to create another texture because the more textures we have in our gateau, the better. We only needed to have a minimum of 3 textures in our gateau for this level, but I wanted to go the extra mile and see what I would be able to fit in for our time span, which was 4 hours. After adding my sponge layer, I'm covering the top of the gateau with the same dark chocolate peanut butter mousse, and then I'm going to let that sit in the blast chiller once again so I can get it firm enough for glazing. And now after the gateau has completely firmed up, we can take it out of the freezer and begin the glazing process. I'm taking my blowtorch and I'm just warming up the sides of the gateau so that the metal ring can easily slide out without any hassle whatsoever, and our gateau will remain nice and perfect. After taking off the rings, I'm going to pour over my glaze, which has been cooled down to 31 degrees Celsius, and then I put it in the freezer and gave it a quick second coat of camera. Then I made a quick white chocolate garnish and I added some final touches, and here is the final result. Now let's get into the smaller gateau and look at all those layers. You can definitely tell that the mousse has way too much gelatin. Like, look how dense that looks, but that's okay. Our class started at 2:30 p.m. and by 6:30 p.m. we were done. And there you have it, a day in my life as a culinary student, pastry class edition. If you guys would like to know all about my experience at culinary school, fees, and how to get in, stuff like that, as well as a bunch of other info, make sure to check out my culinary school playlist. And if you like my content, feel free to check out my Instagram and TikTok where I post similar content. Bye, guys!